Good morning, everyone. And at the outset, I'd like to thank the organizers, especially Dr. Bhavna, for inviting me. Starting with the two comments, Dr. Vishal, dacarbazine is still used in India, majority of the melanoma patient. So control arm is local. Today also, so last week also, majority of the patient took dacarbazine and or paclitaxel carboplatin or capecitabine temozolomide. So that remains true here. I do agree for that place, it may be different. Semiplimab, absolutely right comment. The last second slide was the right one. I only regret why it got US FDA approval. I wish it wouldn't have got it because we do know the Simple guys, they are planning to market in India at a very far lesser cost. So all the four molecules which got a trial done in China, till now one of them got approval. I wish other three did not get it. And if they don't get it, we will be the beneficiary. So there is a merit to developing drugs in a different way where a developing country benefits. Comments, other ones, very important. Only 8% trial done in developing countries. Sure, we are at the receiving end. We need to improve our work. Coming to developing the research question, what I'll do is I'll take you through my journey and my colleagues' journey. This is not me. This is all around people in the department and the hospital who has worked around and see how we have done and how did we went about questioning and answering questions. So first one, I will not share all my failures, some of them just to get a hint because I'm a biased person. I'll talking about all what we did right, wrong ones. I'll just mention few of them. First one, and this is the one of the first questions we tried to do. I learned joint TMH. I was treating lung cancer. Lots of patients, if you do in pathology, you'll see ER-PR and AR positive. Oh, I had some great question about it. You say, okay, letrozole was just now that time marketed in India. It was available, say, write a randomized trial to answer, can letrozole work in lung cancer or not? And again, this was a bit inspired by my friend who works in Australia. We wrote a randomized trial, got approval from ethics committee. We had query funding, and then we got stuck in regulatory. We had to go to DCGI. I went to DCGI myself multiple times. It was not online. Went around for almost 2 years. Then I realized, no, maybe I didn't ask the right question. And that taught me a lot that you need to ask question which is locally relevant and how not only relevant, how you can implement it. So this was my first brush and not the good one. We tried another one. So at the same time, I was looking after BMT for some time in the beginning. That's where we work initially. And then now we had a DMG divisions. And then we read a paper in the science, something called CD26, looks like does something in animals. So we thought, okay, simply do CD26 level and see what happens to the patient. So we did it, got a good paper, Annals of Oncology, in today's time, excellent impact factor. And then after we had a publication, then it hit hard, what you're going to do with it then subsequently. Because we didn't have any inhibitor, we didn't have any way to manipulate this CD26. We say, hey, you got a good paper, but not the patient benefits. Again, as mentioned by Dr. Vishal Gawali, we realize, okay, you have to also think, apart from what the data goes out, how your patient benefits. So no more criticism for my own studies. Now it will be all the good things which is there. So next, I was dealing with head and neck cancer because and now also I deal with head and neck cancer. And this, I don't have to show the audience here, but the people who are from outside, they know this is a very common problem for oral cavity cancer in India. We didn't know what to do. We'll give some NACT, some CTRT, some PAL-CT, PAL-RT. Dr. Sarbani is here. So we had just to have a whole discussion how to go about it. Then we did realize that if you don't do surgery to them, outcome is very poor. Then what we did, do we have a concept of called borderline resectability? This is a very well developed concept in pancreas. We said, can we do it in head and neck cancer? And we did it. Subsequently, this is a retrospective study, which we analyzed the data, suggested that if you give adjuvant chemotherapy, half of the patient almost will go for surgery, and the rest of the half of it, if they go for surgery, they survive for years altogether. And that at the end of the day, in long term, you do benefit around 20-25% of the patient. And we said, okay, this is good. And that we have been followed, now treated almost 4,000 plus patients. Shortly, we'll be analyzing the data to see what happens to them. So there was a whole lot of issue. Once, because you are developing a new concept, and this is for all the younger ones, if you develop relatively new concept, you have to answer things all around. And what were those questions? There was all kind of questions. What happened to T4A, T4B? What happens to the margin? What happens to the complication? What happens to the compliance? So what it did, it led us to do all the retrospective study to answer these questions, to say that what happens to them. And what it did, it led to this as a standard treatment. Again, I repeat, our question, we have our issues, retrospective data suggesting it works. It is in NCG, it is in ICMR guideline, and it is also in some other guideline. What was very heartening was, and one of our person whom we follow, Dr. Varmarkan, he is a global head and neck medical oncologist, and in his latest textbook, it did include that, yes, this is one of the treatment option which needs to be considered for our patients. Subsequently, we use this concept in some other places, and that was a skull-based tumor. And this is a small study, and this is a part of NCCN guideline, suggesting that if you pick up a concept, then you have to answer many things all around, and then try to convince your colleague that it works, and that is the way you can take it forward. But emphasizing that retrospective studies can also lead to practice changing work for you, for your patient. So whatever we do it here, Dr. Tanik will not use it there. He will have a different kind of patients. Because when I talk to Dr. Vermarken, he says he doesn't see that many patients like this. Or for that matter, Dr. Lisa Licitra, they say we see very few, but we see in a good number here. So this was a retrospective study. Now, second part is that developing affordable systemic treatment in advanced head and neck cancer. We knew for a long time, we don't have to say it. We have known that this was a cetuximab. We did our analysis. We have done immunotherapy-based analysis, which was an oral presentation by our resident this year, that only 3% of our patients can take these kind of treatments. So we knew that. Now, we have a problem. Now, what is the solution? So what we did, we kept around, moving around and talking to each other. That's a good part about the group. And you see, there is something which our senior, Dr. Bunavli, he uses a lot in his outreach program in their one. And we did find when we went that looks like if you use the drug in lower doses more frequently, toxicity is less, and it looks like it works. And that we had a hint. What we did a retrospective analysis again, and that's our something which we go back again and again, which when we want to develop a trial. It looks like yes, it does have some activity, and that was in palliative setting for head and neck cancer patient. Two of those retrospective data. Subsequently, because we had some hint, we did our phase 2 randomized trial, highlighting Dr. Vishal. The standard arm was cisplatin, not 5-FU cisplatin cetuximab, because only 3% patient can afford it, and suggested that metronomic works in phase 2. Because it did work in phase 2, we took it up for phase 3, and this was our paper for phase 3, and also quality of life, which Dr. Tanak said is very important to see that if drug works, it controls the disease better, it adds life, does it adds quality of life also? It looks like it does, and this was a phase 3 study. Not something very excellent, because only 12 to 15% patient response. Again, 1.52 months, we got stuck, as mentioned by many of our previous speakers. So we thought, can we do it better beyond this? Yes, we did one phase 1 / phase 2 study. What we did, we combined erlotinib, methotrexate, and celecoxib. Same metronomic concept, but we added a drug. Erlotinib, we know it doesn't work in EGFR mutation negative patient, but we did have a paper which suggested that yes, in head and neck cancer, you do have activity. And that led us to this combination. And to our surprise, we were not for certain, but we did see that metronomic failure patient erlotinib works. A group of patients, they responds. So we did this phase 1, phase 2 study, and almost 45% of the patient, there was a response in platinum refractory patient, not as a prolonged control of disease, what we are seeing in immunotherapy, but something useful for us. Again, this was a JCO paper, which led to change of our treatment, the way we treat. But subsequently, I'll talk about the impact for this, the previous study. But what it did, that gave us a base regarding how to develop further treatment. We talked about immunotherapy. As I said, only 3% of our patient can afford. So we had an issue, how do you solve this question? As much we can keep talking to the MNC, they don't listen to us. I'm sure they may listen to our Western friend, but definitely they don't listen to us. What we did, we said, again, we have our review paper on this. We did also find out that dosing as an issue, scheduling is an issue. So what we did this randomized trial. use the same baseline, the triple metronomic chemotherapy. Again, not the standard of care, what is there in Western world. It was not 5FU cisplatinum pembrolizumab, nor 5FU cisplatinum cetuximab. It was triple metronomic chemotherapy in platinum refractory patient and added triple metronomic chemotherapy with 1/10 dose of immunotherapy, that is 20 milligram of nivolumab. And yes, it looks like this was a design fairly well designed, and overall survival was better, quality of life was better if we do that. And it gives us a chance. I'm not saying that this drug and combination same as 5FU cisplatinum plus pembrolizumab, but it gives an alternative. It gives an alternative to people if they want to use immunotherapy in the clinic in head and neck cancer patient. I only want to caution that not necessarily every low dose is good everywhere. We do have certain more experience with other trial, and I can say that with the knowledge of that part, that one needs to be careful. Surely, because of the cost, that goes without saying. This is where we got this recognition. The metronomic chemotherapy is part of NCG guideline. It is a part of up to date picked up that triple metronomic chemotherapy and included just after presentation in ASCO. It happened, and we suddenly realized after a week it is there. And this is a bonus. How many times you hear Dr. Vishal Gawali in one day talking about 2 trials done at one place and all positives? So he talked about Jefferton plus chemotherapy. Yes, I'll come to that earlier. And this is a commentary from him on the eCancer website, if I'm not wrong. Yes, that is. And I'll request people to listen to him. And thank you, Dr. Vishal, for this kind comment on this. So subsequently, we were working on head and neck cancer. Head and neck cancer, a whole lot of unanswered questions. So we wanted to know, can we improve outcome when you are giving chemo radiation to these patients? And where the comparative study, which was talked about, does it help? So this is something which is pretty famous. Everyone knows about it. Weekly versus 3-weekly cisplatinum, led by our group, Dr. Vanita Narona. And this is the result we had. And I need to not say that, yes, it is there in NCCN and another part, and also in the up-to-date on almost any guideline you have. We wanted to make it better. Can we do it better? So we had some local EGFR inhibitor. We put those guys to fund this, and what I'm presenting is all investigator-initiated study. I showed you this. None of them is they may pharma funded, but none of them is pharma sponsored. They're all TMG sponsored, but investigator-initiated study. So we did this. 36 patient suggested that it controls the disease better, and as we heard, no less benefit. But again, that's what we had. So there is a criticism for the study that, but yes, it was a local drug which is available, which we could use to answer the question: does it make things better or not? This also led us to do what is cisplatin ineligible patients. Today you have cetuximab. 3% patient can afford it. Most of our patients can't afford it. So we had to have an answer. Do you have some drug which, whether you can't give cisplatin, can you give some other drug? So we do docetaxel or 15 milligram per meter square. What is the cost? 3,000 rupees or 3,000 rupees for the whole treatment. And this was a randomized trial presented in ASCO as an oral presentation. Dr. Vijay was supposed to go. Dr. Vanita presented there. And this is the study suggesting that, yes, if you can't give cisplatinum, you can give cetuximab. Please go ahead and give it. I'm not saying that you can't give it, but if you can't, which is there in 97% of our patients in India, then please use this drug, which adds life to the patient in this setting. We also had some learning experience while doing some other studies. Sometimes don't jump the question, which we did once. We had this randomized trial, which came for Jefferton versus chemotherapy in EGFR mutation positive patient. We wrote a trial just after IPAS. We were excited about it. We can do it here. What did we learn? We did EGFR testing at our hospital, and then it was okay. We can't do the trial. You need to have those testing before that. So we went back, wrote another study to get this testing there in the hospital. And then we did complete the study subsequently. What it did, it allowed us to answer the next question which Dr. Vishal mentioned in his presentation, that was Jefferton plus chemotherapy. Osimertinib was there in the market that time. We didn't do standard arm as osimertinib because it's not feasible at all. I'll come to the another part of the standard arm if we keep global. Our low-dose immunotherapy, in case if it high-dose immunotherapy is a standard arm and then comparing a non-inferiority design, you can't do the study because I required 10 times the cost, which was not available at all. So that was impossible to do in the country like India or Nepal or Bangladesh, or for that matter, Sri Lanka. This allowed us to say that yes, if your patients are requiring a treatment of EGFR mutation positive patient, if you give Jeffrey plus chemotherapy, indirectly it looks like it may be similar to what you have in or what you get with osimertinib. We had a good recognition, oral presentation, 30 plus 30 top abstracts, and we have various guidelines. NCC doesn't include it. So, but we should work with it because ultimately this is our solution. It is not American patient. American patient has osimertinib. They will get everything there. Our patient doesn't get it. So I'm happy with my NCG guideline including it. If NCG guideline includes it, EVM guideline includes it, and my patient gets it, and when we calculate the cost with this trick combination, the cost is around 3,000 to 4,000 rupees per cycle. That's all, and that can be afforded by any patient in this country in any scheme. Only if there's no scheme, then they can't afford it. Otherwise, they can. So what I can conclude, developing research question is one of the important aspects, and that was a very important comment. If you don't do research, you harm your patients more than if you do it. Sure, there will be issues, but if you don't do research, you harm your patient more than if you do it. It is important for question to be add value to some aspect. Absolutely right. This was mentioned by many speakers. Some value, their values can be different. Where I differ, not always it will be adding life or quality of life, changing treatment, becoming easier for patients to come to hospital. There are many other aspects which we need to have a discussion on. I do understand, and I'm a big fan of Dr. Tanak for that too. I mentioned to my students always, but I also acknowledge in my practice, there are many aspects when you make things easier for patient. Important to be careful in the scientific aspect of research question development, and it is really important to ensure that research questions develop within the resource available. You can have a best of the research question, but the resource is not there, you can't do it. So resource is not going to increase for you. You can change your question and answer questions which is useful for your patient. A lot of acknowledgement from me also, because this doesn't happen alone. This is all you can ask any of my group people; they would have given the same talk. These are all the students. These are all my faculty colleagues, and without that, nothing would have happened. What you have seen, you can call any one of them, you will get almost a similar lecture. And this is a multi-lab team. All the reports, what you said, because of them, I understood what the lab means. 3 people, my teacher, Dr. Babsi, Dr. Banavli, my ex-boss and remains my current boss. Dr. Badwe, he is the TMC director, always there because you land in all kind of situation when you do research, and then you require people who are there for you to take care of those issues when it comes. My pleasure, things, my family. Thank you so much, and happy to take questions.